Good afternoon, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Thank you again for coming back. Today is November 19th, 2022. I always appreciate you coming back and sharing your time with me. So I have several news to share with you. I will start with a video I shared from Oromia Media Network. This is about the ongoing genocide in Oromia, especially in Walega. Uh, you will hear and see the video recorded. The brutal attacks on Oromos by Fano militia and the celebration around dead Oromo body, dragging the dead body on the ground and beating. You can see from this video is brutality, very bad cruelty from Fano militia and Amara militia in Oromia region. So this is not an isolated accident. It is government sponsored, government financed, armed, and got the blessing from the government of Abiy Ahmed to carry out such kind of atrocities without any accountability, because they didn't, brought them to justice. For the last video we saw in Wallo, in Amara region, the assassination of about 30 men from Wallo Oromo, loading them and took them some area and shoot them one by one, and they didn't get any penalty, any accountability for doing that. Despite we have the evidence, the video. The same happened in Berishangul. Nobody got punished because this is a government, regional, local, federal government sponsored operation. In another hand, is a failed state. Ethiopia is a failed state. Nobody, get accounted for or pay penalty for this horrible crime. So in Oromia, it's a different, very different situation under Abiy Ahmed. We saw such kind of just minor activity by Abdi Ille in the Somali region president during TPLF control of Ethiopian government. At that time, he was playing fire, causing conflict between Somalia and Oromo, and arming the Somali militia to displace Oromos from wherever they have relation, and displacing them from their land. This one is much worse. Highly financed, highly trained individuals and armed individuals, Fano militia, Amara militia, crossing into Oromia region and displacing, displacing thousands and thousands of Oromo from their land to fulfill the expansionist agenda into Oromia region, and burning Oromo farmers or residents, even inside their house, alive with their houses, and burning of their houses, looting of their properties, including livestock, and this is conducted, as I said, without any accountability, with the blessing of the federal government. It's also show us how the federal government is complicit with this operation, and it's a failed state. Nobody is accounted for. and no internet, no phone service, especially in Western and Eastern Wallagga, and no local media and international media presence to cover all these atrocities, all this genocide happening in Oromia. So that is, is a tough one to watch. I advise you not to watch with kids, but we just I'm just sharing with you so you can be the voice for against such kind of brutality, such kind of cruelty, such kind of genocide, and call for accountability on those individuals. They are on the video. You see them. And if such criminality is not brought to justice, I don't know how Ethiopians can live together in the future. This is even very bad for Amaras. Amaras should speak up against this. They should speak up against this. It's a very bad for them. So uh, to stop this, the Oromo community, the Oromo diaspora community, especially, we have, freedom to express our, opposition or support. So we have to intensify the protest against this brutal regime, this failed regime in Ethiopia. And we have to continue calling upon Prime Minister to resign. And, he's a failed state and no law and order in that country. So he is sitting there. The Oromia regional government, they're sitting there while our people are suffering. So we have to demand justice. We have to be the voice for these voiceless people in Oromia. And we have to continue lobbying our senators, our representatives, governors, and let them know what is happening in Oromia. In addition, we have to do the activities that's done in last 2 days in Minnesota and Washington, D.C. That's encouraging, coming out to denounce the air strikes, drone strikes on civilians, on people going to church or coming back from church, farmers. That's a good one, but we need to do more. We need to do more everywhere in the United States and the United Kingdom, all European countries like we did before, and Canada, Australia. The silence is not the solution. It will not end this bombardment, these civilian killings, and this Fano crossing into Oromia and taking the control of Oromo lands and destroying Oromo lives. So we need to increase our voice, be active more, and don't worry about some media are trying to divide the Oromos, like by saying Johar has, his own armed forces, and Jalmarro has his own armed forces. They are fighting against each other. No such kind of credible evidence available. No, there is some silence we can see, but it's not that amount to that kind of division. I didn't hear Johar Mohammed, OFC senior officer, has armed forces. I know Jalmarro has, but I didn't hear. So that's maybe need clarification from Ofeko or Johar Mohammed if there is something under his name, and especially in the Bale and RC area. So I don't know, but some media are claiming there is a force belong to Jalmarro. There is a force belong to Johar Mohammed, and they are fighting against each other. So that's need clarification, and I hope Johar Mohammed will come out and say something about this, This is very important. This is, some try to create a division and to create obstacle for Oromo movement. So, that should be clarified. But except that, I have seen in Minnesota and Washington D.C. is united. Oromos are united. Still, they are raising their voice for voiceless Oromos suffering under Abiy Ahmed leadership. And also the international community, they have to end their silence. What's happening in Oromia, UK, European Union in general, US, Australia, Canada, they have to, express at least their concern, like they did in for Tigray region. So we need more attention. Very serious crime is happening under Abiy Ahmed in Oromia region. Genocide. So that should be, they should end their silence and be the voice for the voiceless Oromos. And I know the people in Oromia, it's very tough for them to say anything against Prime Minister Abiy. But for support, yes, they are allowed to do so. But I hope they will be courageous to come out against this genocide happening in Oromia. I hope so. And they should demand the resignation of the Prime Minister. This Prime Minister failed the country. Lawlessness everywhere. Injustice everywhere. People are just killing and celebrating their killings. So that must come to an end. I hope it will come to an end. I hope accountability will come to Ethiopia one day. So let's listen to this video and continue with other news and the videos I selected for today. Thank you again for coming back. It's a very short one. You will see how the Fano Amaras celebrating, showing their weapon. This is recorded and it will stay for history, and it's very bad for Oromos and Amaras to live in that country. Very bad. But this is happening under the failed state, and all in the domestic and the international community should demand the resignation of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. The country is heading into a very, very bad direction. So let's listen. I think they blocked it for maybe graphic reason, but you can see when the celebration. Shame on them. Shame on Amara militia. Shame. This is happening in Ethiopia. You see, it's a recording quality issue, that you see, beating and dragging.
Obbolaa keenya ajjeesanii reeffa isaanii lafarra harkisanii itti sirbuu irratti kan isaanii argamanii tarii haleellawwan akkasii balaaleffachuudhaaf akkuma Abrahaam jedhe miseensa paartii mormituu ta'uun hin eegamu ulaagaan addaa Oromoo ta'uunis dirqama miti. Tarii namooma qofa yoo yaade namni kamiyyuu waan akkasii kana garamitti deemaa jirraa waan jedhu irraa hubachuudhaaf ni danda'eeta yaada. Jiraataa tokko dubbisnee ture jechuudha haleellaa kana jalaa kan baqatanii sagalee isaanii immoo dhageenya walitti deebina. Magaalaa Jaarsee fi mana Kaaddisaa jira, mana Gurgubaa jira, nama Addeessaa jira, mana tokko lama miti, mana baay'eetu dubateera. Inni kaan immoo isaan jira, mana sana keessa namni waa tokko qabu jira natti fakkaatu. Qaamamaa jira. Makiinaa baabbee haajii kan
So they are talking to the local residents, mentioning what they are doing, the Amara militias. killing, burning properties, houses.
Egaa gabaabumatti wanni Wallagga keessatti ta'aa jiru isa kanadha. Kun egaa haala neetwoorkiin hin jirre, haala bilbilli hin jirre keessatti waan gabaabaa naannoo sanatti ta'e hubachuudhaaf kan yaallirraa kan isin biraan jedhamanii wanni Wallagga keessatti ta'aa jiru dhimma akkaan suukanneessaa dhimma himachuuf illee hedduu.
This Black Friday, make every day rock like a Friday. Rock a new adventure. Roll with more fans.
Good morning.
Okay, I'll come back to this video. So this is happening under Abiy Ahmed leadership, Prosperity Party, and nobody accounted for the past crime and for this also, despite the available evidence. That is a sign of failed leadership. That's why concerned citizens media repeatedly call upon Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to resign, just like his predecessor, former Prime Minister Hailemariam Desalegn. That guy is smart, really. You know, he was challenged, but things were not very bad like this. He resigned, but this Prime Minister, despite all the bloodshed, despite all the destruction, despite all lawlessness in that country, he just stick to his chair. He enjoyed planting trees, flowers, constructing White House, and just joking, smiling, while people are dying and killers are celebrating on video. And people are, killed and their bodies burned openly without any accountability. He doesn't care. As much as Arat Kilo or his White House is safe, he doesn't care. But the people, the Ethiopian people, the international community must speak up and call upon him, demand for his removal. He's killing the country. He's making the country a failed state. So I'll come back to about this 3 days ago. Ethiopian government opened bidding for Ethiotelecom to sell about 40%, so that they get the money from IMF and other investors, so that they can buy tanks, drones from Turkey or somewhere else. Okay, let me read the other news. I'll come back to the videos. Thank you again for joining me. The other one is a challenge from Gurage zone. This is credit for Addis Standard. I always check Addis Standard, so I have 3 from Addis Standard. I appreciate Addis Standard for giving us news and updates on Ethiopia. Let me read. Residents in Walqite city, the capital city of Gurage zone in southern nations, nationalities and peoples, SNNP regional state, have staged yet another protest by boycotting routine activities in the city and its environs, which included suspending civil service works and business activities. Similar protests of boycott was held by residents of Walqite on August 9, shortly after the submission on August 4 by the SNNP Regional State Council to the House of Federation, HOF, a cluster of 10 zones and 6 waradas in the SNNP region, to be restructured in 2 additional regional states out of the existing SNNP region. It followed after the respective councils of zones and the special Waradas approved the request over the weekend of 31st July. However, the Gurage Zone Council had from the get-go opposed to the restructuring as it was seeking its regional state status, which it tabled as far back as November 2018. According to various records of local media, yesterday's protest of boycott is a continuation of the zone's rejection the federal government cluster restructuring arrangement, which would see a new regional state emerging out of the SNNP region. Residents of the city told DW Amharic over the phone that yesterday's strike was peaceful, except for a minor scuffle between security forces and some youths who were burning tires in some parts of the city. Residents said that all government and commercial organizations in the city were closed, with the exception of the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia. Gurage Zone's continued rejection of the new restructuring has seen zonal and bureau officials who favor the zone's position detained in the last few months. In late August, Addis Standard reported the detention of the Zonal Finance Bureau official Minwar Hayatu, Governmental Communication Affairs official Mabrat Waldemariam, Abebe Amarga, Zonal Enterprise and Industry Development Bureau official, and Ajamal, Vice Dean of Walkitte Polytechnic College. So these people are arrested by federal authorities for peacefully opposing the restructuring. They are looking for statehood, just like others. This is again from Addis Standard. Full implementation of Pretoria Agreement essential to restore partnership with Ethiopia. This is from US government. America's Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Mali Phee, said the cessation of hostilities agreement, COHA, signed in Pretoria, South Africa, between the Ethiopian government and the Tigray leadership must be fully implemented for the US to consider restoring partnership between the two countries. Ms. Phee, Mrs. Mali, please. The issue with Ethiopia is not only the Tigray and the federal government. The issue is beyond that. Please don't ignore the situation in Oromia. We said if there is no peace in Oromia, there is no peace in Ethiopia. So if you want to have a partnership, to restart a partnership with Ethiopia, please help us handle the situation in Oromia. That's a very serious one. Very serious. Don't ignore it. That's my message from Concerned Citizens Media. I hope you are listening to this. She was responding to a question put forward by Congressman Brad Sherman during a hearing in the House Foreign Affairs Commission on assessing the Biden administration U.S. strategy toward sub-Saharan Africa. Will the U.S. commit to not restoring AGOA and not supporting IMF, World Bank, etc. loans to Ethiopia until the Ethiopian government fulfills its obligations under the agreement, including humanitarian aid, protection for civilians, human rights monitoring, and restoration of service, including the internet, Congressman Brad asked Assistant Secretary Phee. Her answer: "We have made it clear to the leaders of the Ethiopian government that full implementation of the agreement reached in Pretoria and elaborated in Nairobi is essential to restore the partnerships that we previously enjoyed," she said. US President Joe Biden announced on 23 December 2021 to terminate the designation of Ethiopia as a beneficiary 01 January 2022. AGWA. With regard to the withdrawal of foreign forces, Assistant Secretary Phee said that it is part of the agreement and that the US is committed to additional sanctions on Eritrea if Eritrean leaders, fail to pull out their troops from Ethiopia. I concur with your assessment of the negative role of Eritrea in Ethiopia. I think it is a positive development that, as part of this discussion, the issue foreign is part of the agreement and the withdrawal of foreign forces. On Wednesday, 16 November, a senior US government official told reporters that the COHA between the federal government and the representative of the Tigray regional state signed in South Africa, Pretoria, on 2nd November calls for the withdrawal of not only Eritrean forces but Amhara special forces and Afar militia that are currently in Tigray, and that the US will not hesitate to use sanctions if the commitments are not abided by. Okay. Eritrean forces have been accused of acts of atrocities they committed against Tigrayan civilians since the start of the war, which has long been documented by human rights organizations, including the state-backed Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, EHRC, highlighting grave human rights violations and an attack against civilians in Aksum City, Tigray region. Assistant Secretary Mali Phee also said that the issue of illegal detention and the torture of ethnic Tigrayans in different parts of Ethiopia is part of the dialogue the US government has been having with Ethiopian officials. The issue of the contested Western Tigray, which the Pretoria COHA says would be resolved in accordance with the Constitution, is an issue that is going to be discussed, Assistant Secretary Phee said. I don't believe the details about how they would conduct any referendum or address resolution of that dispute have been determined, she said. She added, addressing lawmakers, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said on Tuesday, November 15, that the issue of the contested areas, including Western Tigray, will be dealt with in accordance with the laws and the regulation of our country. But there is no law and regulation in that country. When you see people are killing and dancing around the body, so that's fake. That's fake. You are failed, Mr. Prime Minister. You failed the country. You failed Ethiopians. The better place is for you is to face justice for all the bloodshed you created in that country. So, again, I am Mrs. Mali Phee. Please, we have very serious issue in Oromia. So, before you start reestablishing a relationship with Ethiopia, please consider demand change in Oromia region. to stop the genocide happening over there. So I also I wish you share with Mr. Brad Sherman to know more about Oromia region. We appreciate his concern about Tigray. He's speaking up. He's releasing press statement. We are encouraged for speaking up, but don't ignore the issue in Oromia region. As I said before, you want to invest. You want to invest in banking system. You want to invest in telecom. But peace is very essential. And if there is no peace in Oromia, there is no peace in Ethiopia. That must be resolved. This is a tragedy carried out by Kuwait, including execution of one Ethiopian woman. They didn't release the name of the executed people, but one Ethiopian woman is included in this execution. She left her country for better job. For some reason, she's caught in this execution through the Kuwaiti legal system. As you know, Kuwait is saved by international community under the leadership of US during George Bush the first. It was invaded by Saddam Hussein. Kuwait cried for help. International community helped, removed Saddam Hussein, crushed him, forced him to get out. Kuwait survived. Now Kuwait is applying the harshest, cruel penalty, the death penalty, despite the international help to restore its territory and its government. Kuwait, death penalty, it should be exceptional for high magnitude criminals, for those brutal killings. But for some government, they use it to kill opposition parties for speaking up, like Saudi Arabia. Kuwait may be doing the same thing. I don't have details, but let me read what this United Nations Human Rights Office said. UN Human Rights Office condemned execution of 7 people in Kuwait, including an Ethiopian woman. Addis Ababa. The United Nations Human Rights Office, in a statement it issued yesterday, has condemned the execution of 7 people in Kuwait on Wednesday. Liz Throssell, spokesperson of the UN Human Rights Office, described the execution disturbing. According to the statement, the victims include 4 Kuwaiti nationals, 3 men and a woman, an Ethiopian woman, a Pakistani man, and a man from Syria. The executions are a deeply regrettable step that comes just days after a wide majority of states in the UN General Assembly called for a moratorium on the death penalty worldwide, it stated. It has been reported that Kuwait has executed nearly 80 people since 1960, mostly in connection to murder or drug cases. The United Nations Human Rights Statement emphasized that the state of Kuwait is among some 38 countries that has been continuing executions and urged to cease such measures. Kuwait should halt all executions immediately, establish a formal moratorium on the use of the death penalty, and commute the death sentence against those on death row, the statement clarified. The Commission urged the Kuwaiti authorities to bring the country's law and practices in line with international standards. Yes, I hope so. And they are saved by international collaboration, and they should respect the international law and abide by international regulations. You know, they are saved. So if you are saved by international communities, why you are acting against the international law? You know. So this is also credit at this standard. The last one for today's reading, this is a statement by Vice President Kamala Harris on Speaker Nancy Pelosi. So Nancy Pelosi stepped down from her role as a Speaker of the House, and the House is taken by Republicans. It's unfortunate. So the Senate and the presidency is under Democrat control, but the House is under Republican control at this time. That is the American choice. People voted in that way for now. So Trump is also announced a run for president for 2024, despite all the accusations and the investigation, and he wants to come back if the Americans allow him to come back. So we might see again January 6th, you know, or denial of election deniers, and all this propaganda or speech from this former President Donald Trump. If you remember, is openly on the YouTube. He say, if you don't go to the capital and act, you will not have a country anymore. You remember all this? This is a crime. People died, and our representatives were endangered, property damage, but he's still, enjoying immunity. So far, investigation is continuing, but I don't know what's going to happen now. The House is controlled by the Republicans. I don't know. But the investigation, I hope, will continue, and he will be accounted for. He tried to, become a dictator like we see in Africa. America, they have law. But still the challenge, this guy got so many tough lawyers, and he still didn't pay any penalty for his words, for encouraging those protesters to go to the capital here and destroy the electoral procedure, and even for the killing of individuals over there. Okay, let me read what it says. Speaker Nancy Pelosi has not only made history, she has shaped it. She has not only broken glass ceilings, she has shown the world, and young women in particular, that there is no ceiling they cannot reach. I have worked with Speaker Pelosi throughout my career, most recently as a United States Senator and as Vice President. The magnitude of her impact and legacy in California, in Congress, and in countries around the world cannot be measured. As the most effective speaker in our nation's history, her leadership and tireless advocacy has always been focused on creating an America that truly lives up to the ideas that our founders envisioned and our children deserve. As a fierce defender of democracy, she has stood up for our nation's most sacred ideas during some of our darkest moments. The second gentleman, and I wish Speaker Pelosi, Paul, and their entire family all the best as she continues to serve California and build on her unmatched record of service in Congress. So that's a contribution from Vice President Kamala Harris on Speaker Nancy Pelosi for her long serving and for her advocacy for democracy, for all the services she did for California and for the United Nations, for the US and beyond. So we appreciate the service and wish her good luck, whatever she want to do in the remaining of her life. So that is the end of reading. Let's continue sharing some videos and end today's presentation. Thank you again.
It is to be recalled that the government of Ethiopia had issued a request for proposal in 2021 to invite interested bidders for the partial privatization of Ethiotelecom in line with the government overall economic reform strategy that focuses on introducing competition in the sector of the economy that are fully controlled previously by the government. With the successful liberalization process of the telecom sector that saw the market entrance of Safaricom and its partners, the partial privatization of Ethiotelecom aims to create a competitive and diverse telecom sector to achieve the digital transformation plan of the country. In March 2022, the government decided to postpone the partial privatization transaction after consultation with several telecom companies who showed their interest to participate in the tendering process with the environment of adverse development in the domestic and international market. After a careful consideration of the market conditions and a very stable outlook currently of the country, with the signing of the agreement to end hostilities in the northern part of Ethiopia, the government is now ready to engage with prospective bidders to partially privatize 40% of Ethiotelecom's share. Today, the government is reinstating the process with the launching of the expression of interest that will permit interested companies to express their interest. The government will be supported in this transaction by Deloitte Consulting Limited, which will be the transaction advisor representing the government. The document related to expression of interest will be available in the website of the Ministry of Finance, and expression of interest will be open until December 19th, 2022. Today, we are also announcing that the Ethiopian Communications Authority will be initiating a stakeholder consultation to collect all interested stakeholders' contributions regarding the issuance of the third telecommunication operation license. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's a little bit delayed because I was busy. It was announced like 2-3 days ago. Okay. More video to come. There we go. This is about UK new Prime Minister visiting Ukraine and standing with Ukraine with everything they can.
Oh, really good to see you. Good to see you. Very good to see you. Well, there we go. Like I was saying, I've got my coat for later. But your team have been fantastic.
You brought us rain, but don't say I.
This year alone, we have provided £2.3 billion of military support. And we will do the same again next year. As you succeed in pushing back Russian forces on the ground, your homes, your hospitals, your power stations are being destroyed by the air. So to help you defend yourselves, we are today providing new air defense support, including 120 anti-aircraft guns, radar, and anti-drone equipment. We're extending our training for the Ukrainian armed forces to include specialist expertise from UK medics and engineers. And we are stepping up our support to help you through the cold, hard winter ahead. This includes winter kit for your troops, help for your amazing first responders, and another £16 million of humanitarian assistance for food and shelter.
Hundreds of journalists, campaigners and political activists took to the streets of Dakar on Friday to demand the release of a Senegalese journalist and government critic arrested earlier this month. Representatives of journalists' unions marched along the boulevard near the city centre, chanting "Free Pape Ale Niang" and protesting at other detentions. The convention with other organisations we mobilised this afternoon to demand his release, he says. Pape Ale Niang's place is not in prison, but in the newsroom. That is why we will lead the fight. We're going to fight for the release of our colleague Pape Ale Niang, who's only done a service to Senegalese democracy. Pape Ale Niang runs the online news website Dakar Matin and has been critical of President Macky Sall's government. He was arrested on November the 6th and charged 3 days later with a number of offences, including spreading false news.
We have also made it known to the state of Senegal, to the Senegalese government, that it was out of the question that in 2022 there are still Senegalese journalists precisely who are imprisoned for press offences. We want this to stop, and we ask the state of Senegal, we ask mainly our leaders to release all hostages, including Pape Ale Niang, who was detained for press offences.
Niang's detention has sparked a wave of criticism from the press and civil society against the Senegalese president. It comes as this year's World Press Freedom Index ranked Senegal down 24 places from last year.
There we go. This is the last one.
Completely silent.
Launching a satellite from NASA.
And here we go. 10. Hydrogen burn-off igniters initiate. 7, 6, 5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
Back to the moon and beyond. Okay.
All 4 RS-25 engines on the core stage and 2 solid rocket boosters now propelling the vehicle at 128 miles per hour. Hearing good control on the roll from teams in Mission Control Houston. All good calls so far. Now 30 seconds into the flight of Artemis 1. SLS now traveling 607 miles per hour. You're looking at 8.8 million pounds of maximum thrust. Quiet here in the loops in Mission Control. 4 core stage engines throttling down ahead of passing the max Q. Now 1 minute, 21 seconds into the flight, traveling at 1,420 miles per hour. The 4 core stage engines are back at maximum thrust. The next major milestone will be for the solid rocket boosters to cut off and jettison in about 2 minutes and 11 seconds into the flight, so about 30 seconds from now. Again, quiet here in Mission Control Houston as teams continue monitoring the flight of Artemis 1. We're now 16 miles downrange from the launch pad at Kennedy Space Center, traveling over 2,800 miles per hour.
2,000.
Confirmation that the solid rocket boosters have separated these 177-foot boosters. Now the core stage continues to power the flight of Orion, all 4 RS-25 engines firing, traveling over 3,400 miles per hour, 46 miles downrange.
Okay. So I appreciated all the journalists who worked on those media and for allowing us to share their videos. We appreciate their work. So the Ethiopian government announcement on the selling of 40% of Ethiotelecom Yeah, it was, according to different media, it was a demand by international actors uh, to have that kind of stake. It's a pressure, but it's a good thing. It might, increase the telecom communication standard. The challenge we have when we call back home, it might help on that area. What about the money they're getting from here? What they're gonna do? They're gonna increase, the employment of youth who are desperate, who are running away from the country into uh, Eastern and Western Europe and Kenya, just desperate to just looking for some kind of job. If if help if it help them, that's good. If it's not uh, spent on drones, tanks, Abiy Ahmed is purchasing from Turkey, China, or Iran, and to kill Ethiopians. If I suspect this guy, he might use this generated fund from this sale of 40%, plus also they are start selling electricity to Kenya, according to the news I got. So they are selling electricity to Kenya already. They started. So they are making millions of dollars from that one. Also from this 40% sale of Ethiotelecom, plus also the banking. The banking also, they are opening up banks for foreign investors. But the problem, who gonna watch these guys? Especially the prime minister, who has no control. Parliament cannot control him where he is spending the money. That's a challenge. Opening the country for investment is okay. Where are you gonna take the money? If you are investing in the country, if you are investing for to handle employment, to change the health challenge, to buy medicine for the public, it's okay. If you are not buying drones, tanks, bullets, and other military hardware to kill, to wage war against Oromos, still we appreciate. But who gonna watch it? I hope Ethiopians will be courageous. Parliament speak up courageously to demand, to ask him where the money is going. If he's not answering, all of them should stand up against him, ask, demand his resignation. They can do it. They can do it. For some reason, Ethiopians are weak, really. I show you multiple times Sudanese protesters against the military ruler. Now you see, for one journalist in Senegal, Senegalese journalist and activist coming out demanding the release. Where is this kind of energy? Why we are missing this in Ethiopia? Why? Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed arrests many journalists, release them wherever he feel, without any accountability. He arrested many politicians. Non-politicians are still in thousands in Ethiopian jail. Ethiopians are silent. We need to find out a gene in an encouragement from Sudanese, from Senegalese, and try to resist. We have a right in the Constitution. The Constitution gives you a right to demand justice, to speak up against injustice in Oromia or everywhere. But your silence is killing yourself. As if you are just a sofa cannot say anything for on the person who is sitting on him, sitting on it, or sleeping on it, whatever you want to do on it. Ethiopians are becoming a sofa by silencing all the atrocities happening in that country, injustice happening in that country. So we need to speak up like Senegalese for one individual, like Joar Mahmoud. Nothing happened. Almost a year he was in jail. Nothing. No protest. No protest. Whether in Adama or Addis Ababa or Bale, Shashaman, not visible. Not visible. That's a shame on Ethiopians. We need to change the gene. We need to change our gene so we can be strong to defend the constitution, to defend our rights. When one journalist arrested, every journalist should come out and stand against it, demand the release. The same with all civilians killing and all atrocities. You know, other than that, if you continue your silence, you will be like another Eritrea. Okay, the Russia-Ukraine war, it is Russia against the world. Russians should understand. If not, they will continue bombardment for no good ending. No good ending. They will lose their resources and they are blocked internationally and financially. They are suffering. So if they are smart, they have to negotiate with Ukraine, end the war, and go back to their country. That's the best option. If not, Ukraine will get help from all European countries. The United States is pouring our tax money over there. So all the technology is there. I don't know how they're going to win. Finally, they will withdraw, just like they did in Afghanistan. This is the worst. They are fighting with international community, with all the technology from NATO, from United States, UK, some other countries. Maybe they are doing under, in a concealed way, but they are suffering and under international sanction. If I were the president of Russia, I will sign a deal immediately. It doesn't worse fighting with the global community. It's not worse. So the Russians, they must be smart. So let me close. Please be the voice for the people suffering in Oromia, especially in Wallagga, East and West Wallagga. Those Amara militia and the Fano are crossing the limit, really. They are crossing the limit and they are out of control. We must stop this celebration. We must stop this celebration by all means, whether talking to the United States, talking to UN, talks to European Union, wherever the solution, and also demanding justice and for the removal of this failed government in Ethiopia. That's all I'm going to say for today. Thank you again for sharing your time. Be safe. So long, everyone.